from the time of the Atenist invasion of Britain, this is people who've been following my work on the Irish origins of civilization, know that the people referred to in Irish history as Milesians, I've actually identified as the Atenists, meaning that these were people who, although not originally Egyptian themselves, they did themselves come from the West in very early times, are basically identical with the group that was thrown out of Egypt with Akhenaten. And when these people invaded Britain, they were trying to go back to the ancestral homeland. They weren't the first Egyptians to do so, but they were certainly a malignant group of Egyptians who tried to do so because they weren't coming to share power in Britain. They were coming with express purposes to conquer Ireland and conquer Britain, to take it for themselves. And that is the famous British Empire upon which the sun, right, i.e. Aton, never sets. And the female symbolism has been there from day one. In fact, the very word Europe refers to a female, right? Britain refers to a female. Sweden, the word comes from Svea, which refers to a goddess. So, and in even Ireland, comes from Eri or Ari, which referred originally to a goddess of the earth. It's where we get the word terra from, like terra firma. This is and even the word area, when you say an area of land, yeah, meaning an area of her, the goddess, Eri. That's where the word comes from. So this group arrives in Ireland, puts Ireland through the ringer, destroys the Druids, and then we have to understand that once they've set up their dominion, and by the way, the group that I'm talking about isn't as mysterious as people might think when I'm speaking. If people think Knights Templar and Cistercian order, we're talking about the same group. If people talk about Merovingians, we're talking about the same group. It's just a different wing that's not been officially studied too much before. This is the same group, or at least it's the proto-Templars, the people who actually educated the Templars. All right, the Templars took their education in everything, not just including world history, but astronomy, occultism, magic. That's why when we see all these occult symbols today, and many of them refer to, they're coming from the Masonic lodges and the Templar lodges. Yes, but where did they learn it? Right? Why is Akhenaten's face right at the top of the Shriner's image, and the Shriner's being one of the most senior of all Masonic bodies in the world? Even the Masonic compass has Akhenaten's face at the top. You see things like that. So when this group took over England, took over Britain, and the Druids was wiped out, these guys didn't just have kings in place down through the centuries, and we're talking perhaps about 500 years BC onwards. Many queens, they're known as the Celtic queens, including Boadicea, including some of these very famous fiery, warlike beings. So these were the Celtic queens who were descended from this line. So, and the Queen of England is absolutely one of them. She is coronated on the Stone of Scone, which was originally in Tara. So the very place in Ireland at Tara where these queens and kings of this Atenist dynasty were coronated, she sits on the same St. Edward's throne. It's now called St. Edward's chair. People can look it up, or they can get into my videos and see it all there. And also based on this Celtic sort of paradigm, using the sun, using the pyramid, using the dove, you know, all of this kind of thing. So yes, she would absolutely, along with previous Celtic queens. Now some of them are then, of course, we're talking about those who have been coronated and are officially queens. But we know that many queens who are queen, like Queen Mary, Queen Anne, they don't necessarily need to sit on the throne for very long. We do have the Queen Elizabeth and the Queen Victorias, the ones that are more successful and famous. But we have many princesses. We have many dowageresses. Right? Over in France, we have the same story. And then my question has always been, well, yeah, and we also have that, but we also have the mothers and the wives and the sisters of the Godfrey de Bouillons, you know, and the tyrants of the world, the Hugh de Payens and these popes. Aren't they born from a mother? You know, it wasn't Alexander III and wasn't Pope Pius and Gregory VII and all these tyrants. Weren't they born from mothers? What kind of moral sensibility did these mothers, sisters, and wives install in their male children and husbands? Not a lot, if we look at the chronology of history. So why has it been therefore? So my work is merely doing nothing more than saying, can we now bring them into the frame? Can we widen the angle so that we can actually bring into the frame, put on the theater stage here, put on the Mugs Gallery, some of these women? I mean, if you watch the Queen's coronation, you will see that on the balcony, there they are. All the female, no males, just the female, the family dynasty members are presiding over her coronation. Many of the other symbols that are used in the coronation are actually of a feminine, a female point of view. So the group that I'm talking about and looking into uncovering is not a large group. By no means are they large. But power does not need to always be necessarily in the hands of a majority. A very highly empowered, extremely revered group that I now am convinced is the top of the pyramid, that removed capstone, I am more and more starting to realize and think that it is alien. That was number one. This female Illuminati goes into the alien connection because this is where it started, long before the rise of Egypt or Ireland or whatever. It goes back to prehistoric days. But we can no longer rule out that women, because the book of Enoch and the book of Genesis and the book of Exodus not only mentions Eve and Lilith. I mean, we've got reams of questions just about them alone. But we've got reams of questions then, because remember, those two figures were rescripted from earlier Babylonian Sumerian goddess figures like Astarte and Ishtar and Ashtaroth. So we're already opening up a door. And when you start studying the symbolism that these people used, these goddesses, it was attributed to their temples and to their worship. It's not just the crescent moon, but you have the 8-pointed star and you have the 6-pointed star and what have you, and many other symbols besides. And that's what my work will go into, is a deep look at the symbolism that is used by this group. We start noticing those same images on the Masonic and Templar symbols in the plazas of the world, in the temples of the world, in the universities of the world, on the floor plans of the world. Whole cities are designed. Why don't people go and look at the design of Arlington Cemetery? Why don't they go and look at the design of the Pentagon? Why don't they go and look at the design of the Oval Office? You see, but many people have written on this without the keys of decipherment. A lot of people have exposed some of the stuff we're talking about, but they've done so without the true key of decipherment because they've been fooled, they've been befuddled, and they've been hoodwinked to think that the steering committee, the greatest power of all, is man-made, is a male force, a male oligarchical world order. And that's true to an extent. I'm not ruling that out. My work has obviously been exposing that for years. But as I've been going, I've been building up evidence and evidence and evidence, and this is purely through the etymology and the symbolism. That's what this is all about, because that's where the keys are. It's not from official history that you're going to crack any of this. It is only in the true decipherment of certain symbols and certain etymology, the words that lead you to the door of this. And by God, it is fascinating. But again, then you step back and say, now let's review some of these things like the Queen's coronation, the history of England, the designs of Philadelphia, Washington, the Washington Monument. Oh, and that thing called the Statue of Liberty. What the hell is that? Everyone's got an idea of which goddess it represents. And so we relook at that. Why is she sitting on a gigantic star? What do we got this female thing here for anyway? Why was America born under 4th of July, 1776, a female sign, the female sign of Cancer? Why was the inauguration of the United States of America, the signings of the declarations and what have you, done when the star Sirius, which has always, always, always been related to the goddess Isis, period. And then we find that the second dates, this was brought up by David Overson in his fantastic book, The Secret Architecture of Our Nation's Capital, even though he admits he hasn't the faintest idea why any of this is going on. But his research discovered that the other star that's involved is in Virgo, Spica, in Virgo. Virgo, the most ancient symbol of the goddess, the Virgin Mary, going back to Ishtar again, going back to Isis again, going back to every single goddess of antiquity. And America just happens to be the second, and some people even say the most important occult birthday of America was in the sign of Virgo. Now I got questions about that. What the hell is going on? And then you look around and you see the symbols everywhere. And so, I'm cutting stuff in brief, of course, but we're going to go into an elaborate examination of the existence of this group, whose origin, I believe, started in pre-Diluvian times, during the first alien invasion, when there was a colonization of Atlantis and the rise of civilization, so-called. And the thing that really launched me, the thing that I could never, ever, ever, ever get out, and never can, and I've checked all the translations, I've looked at all of different footnotes, and yet in Genesis, in the book of Jasher, in the book of Baruch, in the apocryphal literature, in the Dead Sea Scrolls, and certainly in the book of Enoch, every time it talks about the fallen angels in whatever kind of way that they're portrayed, there are certain nuances, obviously, but in every instance in which they say that these beings took wives from the earth, never once is there a sign or a statement saying, and those women resisted, and those women fought for dear life, and the men rose up of the world to fight the evil ones. A handful of Nephilim can just come here, seize the women of the world, have children by them, and this one little forensic clue. Are we meant to be that dumb? Well, the world basically has ignored this point. But nowhere does it say that there was resistance. Well, then I say then there's room at least for speculation to say, then could it in fact have been a collusion, a willful collusion? Is that what we're reading here between the lines? I think there's plenty of evidence to portray, especially when mythology is loaded with these femme fatales and what have you, these vampires, and the whole history of the female temptress, from Salome to Lilith to you name it, to Eve. We got a whole bloody chronology. The world of mythology is coming out of the woodwork. The Gorgons, the Pandora. Oh, don't open the box. Oops, she opened it. Well, what is all this? You think guys back in Athens and all our historians just had nothing better to do? Why have they been portraying women in a certain way, a certain kind of female, a goddess, a semi-divine being, who unleashed horrors upon the unsuspecting world? Women who eat their own children, treacherous goddesses who blood-soaked. I want to know what this is all coming from. I'm interested in origins, and I'm not just going to accept the history books. And if we can accept that man is a source of incredible crime, we have to also accept that they have women around them. They were born from mothers. They have wives. What is the role of these people? You can accept that it was a Lucretia Borgia and a Catherine de' Medici or a Queen Christina of Sweden, these horrible monsters, or the Queen Victoria who laid the whole of the world before her feet in a sea of blood, and her insane cousins and nephews going off to the Congo and chopping the hands off women and children. Their colonization throughout the world, the subjugation of the United States of America, the involvement in the slave trade. There's women behind this as well as men. How dare we assume that it's only a one-sided thing? And so in this whole concept of the Illuminati, I believe now we need to stop, pause, take a breath, and start reviewing some of the symbolism. Why do the Knights Templar have long hair? Why do they do that? Why, and you go to the headquarters of the Knights Templar in Rome, which is worrisome enough, and walk into the main building there, they have a gigantic painting of the beheading of St. John the Baptist. But behind the esoteric door, they know that the word John does not refer to a male. I give you it in writing. It refers to the Baptist, and down through the centuries, down through the millennia, the Baptist was always female. Jean, G-E-A-N, as the Order of Sion give its top member Jean, not John. That's a cover. It's a male cover for a female entity. There she is holding St. John the Baptist's head. All the Christians are looking at poor St. John the Baptist. Oh my God, these holy knights who worshipping the beheaded John. While the insider smile says, take another look. Yeah, go back to the Leonardo da Vinci paintings and take a look. Take a look at the faces of the Mary Magdalene and the Virgin Mary. Take a look with educated eyes and see something's going on here. Why does one woman sit in the lap of another? What's that all about? What's all this symbolism? Where does the word Mary even come from? Actually, why are the presidents of America sitting in an Oval Office? Of all the designs in the world, what are they doing sitting in a thing called the Oval Office with the ancient Egyptian symbols above every doorway inside?